Hi everybody, this week we'll be talking about at-risk management. At-risk management for those people who are going back into the community or who are being have some issues that might put the community at risk. And we're going to first start about sex offenders. And talking about sex offenders, this is an area that I worked for the vast majority of my career. I did an awful lot on child abuse and sex offenders and taught in the academy for a very long time, over 30 years. And one of the things that I found with sex offenders was that people felt they loved Megan's Law. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Megan's Law and what Megan's Law was. Well, Megan's Law is a feel-good law. It's if you're a sex offender, you have to register so people know who's living in the community. And if you want to see who's living in your community, you just have to go to the sex offender registry. Mass.gov is one of them. It's called the SORB board, SORB. Or you can go to the FBI. The FBI has it. Let me see if I can get that webpage on the top so you can see it. The sex offender registry. You can go to any state you're in. And by doing that, you can go to Megan's Law, which, Megan's Law says if you want federal funds, you are going to classify your sex offenders, and then you're going to let the community know that they're back in your community. Well, here's the thing about Megan's Law, and this was through the CJRS, it's a .gov, they did a study on it. They said, well, it showed no effect in reducing sexual reoffenses. So when I say it's a feel-good law, what it means is that I'm happy to know that the guy down the street is a sex offender, but that doesn't mean he's not going to go out there and do sex offenses. All right. Doesn't mean that he's not going to go out there and reoffend. Doesn't mean that that is one thing he's going to have held over, or she held over her head, where she's going to say, oh, I'm not going to do this because I might have to register as a sex offender. There are some serious problematic areas with the sex offender law. For example, if you're a homeless person and you're a sex offender, you have to re-register all the time. But who's keeping watch of that? Who's the gatekeeper on that? And what happens if I decide nothing keeps me from going from one town to the next or one state to the next? And if I'm a level 3, the worst of sex offenders, and I have kids that are in a grammar school, kindergarten or first or third grade, and I live in that neighborhood and it's a walking school, can I go in to see my kids play? I'm going to guess that some of you would be shocked to learn this. That yes, you can if you've done your time and you have nothing being held over your head except for registering. There's nothing that keeps you out of there. And I had that actually with a case where I had the father who got custody of his child after he got out of jail, and he was I think it was a level 2, but level 2 or 3, and there was his picture in the school, and he would go into the school to see his daughter, play and different activities that were in the school. And the school said, what can we do to stop this? And there was nothing. So when we look at that, we say to ourselves, how do we manage the high risk people in the community? Is it good that we know where they are? I think it's good that a police officer knows an MO of a person. So if you have a case, you can try and it's a stranger rape or a stranger abduction or a stranger, indecent touching, that you can look at the MOs and say, well, this kind of fit X, Y, or Z, and maybe he was in the area, and then you can put together a lineup, or you can put together your investigation. But to say that it stops sex offense, it doesn't. So when we sit there and we talk about managing if they're on probation and they get out, or they're on parole, how do we manage them? Do we go to their house? If they're on parole, there's a lot of great things that can happen with parole. And so you're seeing a lot of sex offenders getting on and afters to be able to control that. And some of those are you can't be around young children, or you can't be involved in certain things, and you have to have drug treatment, or you have to have, therapy, or you have to go to a counselor, or you have to do this or that. If it's probation or parole, they have some control. Should it be intense? Should it be where they have to see their probation officer once a week? Should they have to have something signed from their counselor that they're going to counseling? But what happens when you take all of those away because they've done their time, they've done their parole? Do they go back to reoffending just as quick as before? You know, Megan's Law, as we all know it, it's just a feel-good law. So when you're looking at it this week, I want you to sit there, and I have this up here. You can certainly look at this to read for your paper when you're doing your paper, or actually you're doing a discussion. It might help you. And I think that it's an interesting topic week, anyways. The next thing, and I'm hoping that you all learned something from that. When we look at the written assignment, and remember the written assignment is 4 to 5 pages, and that's of content with not two major sources, but a minimum of 2 sources. What is the general relation between probation, the PO caseloads, and the PO effectiveness? So I'm looking at COVID right now. And COVID, we have people that are not going out and doing home visits. They're doing, Zoom. How effective is that? I can put my background as being in Aruba. Can we find a balance? Do we, can we be in somebody's face 24/7, or can we give them a little leeway to see how they do? What do we do? How do we make that balance? And should we have a probation officer that's specifically trained in that area, whatever area that may be, whether it's alcohol issues or whether it's, a high risk person for an abuse, domestic violence, or a high risk, person that's a sex offender? Should each probation officer be the jack of all trade, or should they be specialized? It's good questions. So I'm hoping that this helps you, and I hope that this makes you think about how you want to go about writing your paper. Have a good week, everybody.